Hey everyone, ready to dive in. Today it's all about getting things done. You know that system by David Allen? It's for anyone who feels like they're drowning in to-dos. It's like, we're excited about learning, right? About all these projects and ideas. Then, bam, that overwhelmed feeling hits. Your brain turns into a browser with way too many tabs open.
And just like those overloaded browsers, things start to slow down. It's not that we can't handle it. It's that we're using the wrong tool for the job. Our brains are meant for thinking, for creating, not storing endless to-do lists.
That's exactly where GTD comes in. And what I love about it is, it gets at the problem isn't always motivation. Sometimes our minds are just cluttered.
It really is, like when you finally clean up your desk. You can suddenly think straighter. GTD does that for your brain, but instead of papers, we're externalizing all those to-dos.
Out with the mental clutter, right? So no more vague, be more organized stuff. GTD gives us that five-step system: capture, clarify, organize, reflect, and engage.
And each step builds on the last one, so you can just pick and choose. It's like a recipe, you gotta have all the ingredients. It keeps you on track, but in a good way, not restricting.
Okay, so let's say my brain IS that 20-tab browser right now. Where do I even begin?
Start with capture. Imagine throwing a net over every single thought, task, anything swirling around up there. That article you want to read, capture it. That podcast episode, capture it.
Even those kind of crazy 3 a.m. thoughts like, should I open a bakery?
Especially those. Doesn't matter if it's a notebook, an app, voice memos, get it out of your head and into a system. If it's taking up mental space, GTD says capture it.
I already feel calmer, and we're only on step 1. But now we've got this, let's be honest, potentially huge E-list. What's next?
Clarify. This is where GTD clicked for me, to be honest. Because it's not enough to just collect stuff, got to decide what to do with it all.
So it's like taking those 20 tabs and going, okay, is this urgent? Can I bookmark this for later? Or just close it for good?
Exactly. And GTD gives you the framework to decide. We'll get into the specifics, but it's basically asking, is this actionable? Can I do it super quick, like 2 minutes or less? Or do I even need to do it at all?
Oh, I love a good 2-minute rule. Instant win right there. But what about the big, daunting projects, the ones that make you want to hide?
Organize to the rescue. This is for my structured folks, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you're basically making a roadmap for each project, breaking it down into steps you can actually do.
So instead of write a whole research paper, it's brainstorm topics, then find 5 articles, then write 1 paragraph.
Yep. And you can even categorize those tasks. Maybe a list for stuff needing focus, another for quick tasks, and one for stuff you're waiting on from others.
Okay, feeling more in control just picturing it. But we've got 2 more steps, and something tells me they're important. Let's talk about reflect. This is where GTD becomes a habit, right?
You got it. Reflect.
Yeah.
That's where GTD goes from a one-time thing to something you actually live with.
Like, it's not enough to set it up. You got to make sure it keeps working, right?
Exactly. Imagine a bookshelf. Great for organizing, but if you never dust, never donate any books, it kind of loses its purpose.
And that's where the weekly review comes in. I've heard so much about this. Is it as magical as people say?
Think of it as a check-in with your system. Every week, you go through those inboxes, look at your projects, and ask, is this still right? Does it match my priorities?
Okay, so I'm sold on the idea. What's it actually look like, though?
Picture this. Sunday evening, cup of tea in hand, but instead of dreading Monday, you check your calendar, your next actions list. You get crystal clear on what needs to happen.
This is where those contexts we mentioned come in, right? Like if I'm on a plane, I can do stuff that doesn't need internet.
Exactly. It's also prime time to ditch any irrelevant tasks. That paper you thought you'd read, but now not so much. Let it go.
So we're clearing clutter, clarifying, organizing, and reflecting. It's like we're building a productivity machine, but constantly fine-tuning it as we go.
I love that. And speaking of fine-tuning, that brings us to engage, which is where we actually get things done.
But this isn't just about attacking your to-do list randomly, right? We're not just picking the task that screams the loudest.
Nope. This is where all that prep work pays off. Instead of urgency, you choose the right task for this moment. Context, energy levels, time, all factors.
So like if I'm super focused, I might tackle that big writing project. But if it's end of day, brain fried, I pick something from my low energy list, filing, quick emails, that kind of thing.
Exactly. No decision fatigue, no second guessing, because you already did the clarifying and organizing. You trust the system and get to work.
I gotta say, this is making me weirdly excited about to-dos. But before we get too into the weeds, let's zoom out for a sec. What are the bigger ideas behind GTD? It's more than a system, right? Like a philosophy almost.
Absolutely. Get these principles and GTD really clicks. First up, clearing your mind. That feeling of calm knowing you've got a system.
Kind of like meditation, that stillness. But
Right.
here, it's externalizing the thoughts, not just quieting them.
Like that saying, the mind is for having ideas, not holding them. And when you trust your system, your mind's free to actually think, to be creative.
Which I'm guessing is huge for our listener, right?
Mm.
If you're into learning, GTD makes space for that.
Exactly. Next core principle, always knowing your next action. We touched on it, but it's huge. Big project, overwhelming. Break it into tiny steps, doable.
Instead of learn everything about astrophysics, it's read one chapter or even just watch a 10-minute video. Way less scary.
Exactly, it gets you moving. And finally, the big one, regular review. We talked about it, but it's worth repeating.
Because it's what holds it all together, right? Even the best system crumbles without maintenance.
It's like a garden. Got to weed, water, prune. Weekly reviews keep your GTD system thriving and relevant.
Okay, I'm loving this GTD philosophy deep dive, but let's get practical. How does this work in real life, especially for knowledge work? Learning, research, that kind of thing.
Such a good question. Let's get specific. Imagine you find a fascinating research paper you're dying to read. You're going down that rabbit hole, right? Articles everywhere, maybe prepping for something, maybe just curious. And it's like, too much.
But that's where GTD swoops in, like, hold on, I gotcha. Instead of freaking out, we make it work for us.
Right. Your own personal research assistant.
Yeah.
So that research paper you mentioned, don't let it become another mental tab.
Capture it.
Clip the important bits with ReadWise, maybe, or
Mhm.
jot them down in your notebook, whatever your system is, out of your head, into the system.
Then we clarify, right? Got to decide what the action is here.
Exactly. Are we reading this whole thing right now? Schedule it in your calendar then, like a meeting?
Or maybe it's for a project later on and it goes in that super organized system we talked about.
Project folders, digital notes with tags.
Yeah.
And that's where next action is so key.
Because instead of, so much to read, it's okay, what's one step I can take?
Skim for the main points, highlight the good stuff. Suddenly, it's not this huge, scary thing anymore.
You actually want to do it. GTD, it's like removing all the obstacles to learning.
That's it. And as you go, GTD keeps guiding you. Make flashcards, summarize in your own words. You're not just passively reading anymore, you're learning.
This is huge, GE. If you're all about new info, like our listener, it's the structure you need to actually use what you learn.
And don't forget those weekly reviews. That's how you adjust as you go. Next action list, getting out of control. Delegate, change the timeline. Got to be flexible.
So adaptable, coming back to what works that's good for, well, everything, not just productivity, right?
For sure. And that's why GTD is so much more than just managing your time.
Yeah.
It's intentional living.
It's making room for the stuff that lights you up, clearing the clutter so you can actually enjoy your passions.
Absolutely. No more constant overwhelm. You're free to focus on what matters, diving into a new subject, spending time with people, even just being present.
So for our listener who's clearly all about that, about making the most of their time and energy, GTD's a path.
It's going from overwhelmed to empowered. And that's worth it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So there you have it, everyone, our deep dive into getting things done, 5 steps, core principles, and how this can be a game changer, especially for those who love to learn.
This is just the start, though. As you try GTD, make it your own, you'll find even more ways to use it.
It's about what works for you. And hey, maybe you'll even have fun with it along the way. Until next time, everyone.